Okay, we are back with the second half of tonight's show, and a really important really important broadcast for us. We haven't got into this territory before. It's very relevant to Australia, and we like to on Truth News cover stories that are really important for our country, our people, and I'm lucky enough to have been able to make contact with Roy Reeves, who is a close family member of the Corby family, that as in Schapelle Corby, who was imprisoned in Bali several years ago. And Roy came to my attention actually as a result of a conference that John Bursell and Roy both attended in Brisbane a couple of weeks ago. And I'll just read to you here some information that I've been provided. This is from Roy. He said, my wife and I have known the Corby family for 20 years when our son and the Corby kids were at school together. Our son died 11 years ago, just after we had moved into the country, and for a while our link with the Corby family was broken. Schapelle's arrest and subsequent imprisonment, and my decision to become an active supporter, rekindled the bond between our families. Reading her book, My Story, was a profoundly moving and life-changing event. The day I closed the back cover, I wrote to Schapelle pledging my support for as long as it takes. I consider myself a man of honour, as well as a very loyal friend, and since that day I have lived and breathed Schapelle Corby practically 24/7. I am now a very close friend of the family and part of a small and trusted group of supporters who are regarded as Schapelle's strongest advocates. Now, I just want to say, the point of what we're doing tonight here is to share the information. It's not up to me or anyone here tonight to adjudicate, and I'm not well enough abreast of all the information in the case to know exactly what I think. But I think it's very important because I think that there hasn't been enough proper coverage of this story in Australia, and what we have seen is a media smear campaign that I think was clearly proven to be that by the way it was treated, with Channel 7 running a very very biased and just incorrect piece of news on the Schapelle Corby's family. So having said all that, I'd just like to now welcome to the show Roy Reeves.
Hello.
Hello and welcome to Truth News.
Thank you.
And we've also got John standing in on the second half of the show. John is actually quite well versed in a lot of issues around airport security. So John, are you there?
I am. I've got a little bit of trouble hearing Roy.
Okay, yeah, actually you're coming through a little bit weak, Roy. I don't know if it's maybe you need to get a bit closer to your microphone, or if you can turn your volume up. I'm getting quite good levels from John, but yours is a bit low. So maybe if you could just lean a little closer to your mic.
Yeah, how's this?
That's much better. Much better, yeah.
Okay.
So look, Roy, I've tried there to give a bit of an introduction to you. I'd just like to basically hand it over to you to convey in the way you wish what it is you're doing, and I guess the most really concise evidence that you can present to the Australian public that there's been a miscarriage of justice, because I think that's what really this hangs on.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I should point out that I am a friend of the family, not a family member. But I have known the Corby family for nearly 20 years, as you said in your introduction. Our son, who now is dead, unfortunately, and the Corby kids went to school together, and he was a friend of the Corbys. But basically, I suppose after reading her book, I was supportive of Schapelle from day one, because there's no way in the world that I thought she was guilty. And when I did eventually get round to reading her book, which I admit I probably should have done a little earlier than I did, it moved me so much that I just felt the need to do what I possibly could to ensure that Schapelle came home as quickly as possible, because there has indeed been a miscarriage of justice.
Great. So you, how does someone who doesn't know anything about this, but they only know what they've heard on the news, and they only, have limited access to information. How can we get to a point to understand the miscarriage of justice? I mean, can you summarize it? Can you summarize it in bullet points in some way that that is not too complicated?
Well, basically, apart from the fact that I know that she is innocent because of the the level of intimacy I have with the family, the fact remains that that no one takes marijuana to Bali from Australia. No one ever has, and it's very likely that no one ever will, simply because the value of marijuana in Australia is approximately 8 times what it is in Bali. Therefore, there's just simply no motive for taking marijuana to Bali. And indeed, Australia is not a drug exporting nation. We are a drug importing nation, but certainly not a drug exporting one.
Are you able to quantify the value of the marijuana which was seized, which they said that she'd brought into the country? Do you know what the street value in Australia of that marijuana would have been?
Well, there are a few differing opinions on that, but what I've heard ranges anything from about $32,000 to about $40,000 in Australia.
Okay.
And the same value in Bali would be somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000.
Okay, so that's...
Could I possibly just comment there briefly, Roy?
Yes.
I actually did a little bit of investigation into this through a few baggage handlers that I know through my employment. And also, over the years, I've been into motorcycles and bands. I'm sort of aware of the drug scene as well. The point has been made, but there's no evidence of it. But just so you understand it, and I've been talking to a lot of people around the place and friends of mine, and there is a belief in the public in Australia, and I don't think this is your best evidence, but I personally think there's been a great miscarriage of justice against Schapelle. I definitely agree with that. But the facts are that the high quality of marijuana that we can get in this country is a draw to some of the surfing crowd and some of the regular people in Bali. And I actually know someone that lives in Bali he's got a residence there. He said that he has heard of them bringing higher grades of marijuana to cater to that wealthier, surfy sort of sect that want that strength of marijuana. Now, how do you respond to that?
Well, I guess what you're referring to is the marijuana that's known as Aussie Gold. The truth of the matter is that Aussie Gold is actually a myth. Tony Wilson, who wrote a book called Schapelle, The Facts, the Evidence, the Truth, he actually went onto the streets of Bali during his investigations for the writing of the book and actually questioned a number of drug dealers in Kuta, and none of them had ever heard of Aussie Gold. And they'd also never heard of Schapelle or Mercedes prior to her arrest. And they were also saying that if there was such a thing as Aussie Gold, that obviously, and it was in demand, that there would be obviously quite a demand for it, and there would need to be a regular supply of the drug into the country, which would then imply that Aussie Gold was going over there on a fairly regular basis.
Well, that's an excellent and obvious answer, and it's something that I've thought myself, and I think you've articulated it perfectly, because we know that the Balinese can recreate anything. They create things cheaper and better than we can. So, of course, they would do that with their drugs if there was a need for hydroponic, high-quality ganja or whatever you want to call it, marijuana, over there in Bali. I'm sure they would find a way of providing it direct and cut the Australians out of the market. That makes complete sense.